Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great week. We're back in action. And I just got back to Canada last night after a really
Mm.
great, almost 3 month road trip in the US. Loved every minute of it. Met so many amazing people. And yeah, always good to be back on home soil. Yeah, but and last week, or this last week was Earth Week. This week is
Yeah.
Earth Week.
Yeah, we just had Earth Week. So,
Amazing. I don't even know what day it is.
I mean, we were pretty much doing like Earth Week
Yeah,
every week, you know?
yeah.
So, but it was a big deal. It was, it's a time of year when, a lot of people, rally and, the employees do, certain projects and all the stuff around Earth Day. Kind of a reminder of like, what's going on in the world, what's going on
Hmm.
the planet, how can we do our part, all of that. So it tends to be quite a busy time, I find, for various organizations. Um, Definitely
Well,
a lot of
absolutely.
emails come
Yeah, and
through.
also, I mean, and also, I think that what was interesting is there's the back-to-back LA Climate Week and then San
Hmm.
Francisco Climate Week, which is still going on right now.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's a big outside of the New York Climate Week. It's the biggest one, and it has a bit more of a technology focus, and so it was
Okay.
really like full on. And I got to catch a few days of SF Climate Week before driving back to Vancouver.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, and
Um,
very different from LA Climate Week. LA Climate Week was a lot smaller, and
yeah.
yeah, more. It felt like more like a tight knit community vibe. And also
Okay.
there was the resiliency rebuilding, and there was the entertainment angle, and yeah, it was
Hmm.
really great. I really loved LA Climate Week. SF Climate Week is just it's huge,
It's bigger,
with a lot more of
different.
like an AI focus and like just tech focused. But
Okay.
yeah, I met ran into some old friends and caught a few events. And then I was like, I'm done. I was like, I hit my like networking max.
You're gonna go
That was
crawl
it.
into a cave now and like
Yeah.
recover.
Yeah. I
So-
haven't stopped since South by Southwest, right? That
oh my
was like in
gosh.
early March.
Yeah,
I just
right.
met so many amazing people. Ah, everywhere. That's um, yeah, just loved every minute of it. So now it's like, a little decompression time.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
about yeah, but how about you? How was
Yeah.
Earth Week?
Earth Week was good. It's interesting. One of the things um, that I'm involved with, that we've heard a little bit about actually on the podcast. We had Joe Madziak on, who kind of alluded
Hmm.
to it, and then Marion we had as a guest. She's been really involved with this group in Toronto focused on material reuse. We have,
What are they
construction
called?
managers, production designers, and industry organizations, and
Hmm.
and just folks who are it's really a grassroots effort. So this week, Earth Week, we launched a website called Rescene. And it's really a simple, straightforward path for productions to source material
Hmm.
and take it back to local companies already in existence in the Greater Toronto Area. So, kind of cutting through or removing the friction, if you will, of, where do I go? Maybe choice paralysis. Maybe, I haven't listed my thing on a website, so therefore I can't do anything. Kind of cuts through all of that and just says, call this company, take the thing back. And there are different companies who have different solutions for different types of material, even storage, which is
Right.
always a big
Was
thing.
it
So
like is it like waste management people, or is it specific to film?
these
Like
are circularity people. These are
right.
people who have materials in a warehouse, lots of materials, not even servicing just the film industry. They service all industries, but
Mm.
they have, space and whatnot for materials to come through. and they've got it, they're working more and more with the film industry. That's one company, Circular Partners. And then another, Wise Acre, has props. And, this is where the props side of the house comes in. And this company helps with material reuse in that domain. And then on the storage front, because, this is always a thing,
Hmm.
um, Dufferin Gate has, places where people can park 53-foot trailers and, store them, and or in another part of their facility, they can store material. So trying to tackle this with existing resources coming all together in this sort of
Yeah.
radical collaboration model to normalize material reuse. And this is all grassroots, and it's really
Wow.
neat to see this sort of effort happening because people are just sick of seeing
Yeah.
materials go to the
Waste.
landfill.
So are the major studios involved in it? Or when you say grassroots, you mean like it's
Crew, production
production folks,
designers,
crew? Wow.
construction managers, folks who have noticed this in and they're working in various capacities in the industry, and then these companies who are like, hey, we have solutions, we can help you guys, and we've all come together. We've been meeting for, gosh, over a year, and I've been facilitating the groups, the
Hmm.
meetings, and we've gone through various stages of, scenarios of what could potentially happen, what solution could potentially play out. And so we've done this sort of scenario modeling, if you will, with the group and come up with a solution that is a first step and probably a
Yeah.
multi-step process over time. And they're really excited about it. This has been, their effort. And now we have to get the word out and normalize
So
material reuse.
I love it.
Uh-huh.
It just it's natural, right? It's a natural thing that we should be doing.
Yeah.
Is this something that you envision re-seen going into other film jurisdictions and other communities around North America? Or
I
is this
mean,
a
it,
Very Toronto specific?
well, right now it's very Toronto specific because these are the people who, and the companies are very localized in the Greater Toronto area. But the concept could be scaled. The
Mm,
website could have multiple cities down the road. This is just the first effort. So we'll put the link in the chat. It's
yeah,
re-scene, SCENE.com. So we'll
nice.
put it in and check it out. Would love to hear feedback from you guys out there.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, it launched this week. So everybody's really proud of it.
I love it. I love it. And who knows, maybe some folks listening will be like, oh, how do I open up a chapter in my community?
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I love it. That's so great. And maybe we can have yeah, is there someone, are you the one leading the group or is there
Yeah.
someone on a local chapter? Okay. So we already
Hey,
have you on as a guest.
exactly. Feel free to pick my brain.
Of
Um,
course, of course.
I guess I have a bit of a talent, maybe, I don't know, for like pulling people together and, moving things forward.
Yeah.
So,
Someone's got to
anyway,
do it.
that's what I've been doing and, helping these folks, and
No, I
it's been
love
good.
it. And a good time to launch during Earth Week.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well, I will
perfect.
give a shout out to Rose LaGrace. She really dove in and helped get the website together and all of that. So she deserves a lot of props for jumping in
Hmm.
and working like film fast, if you will. Because it was a lot, we had to work quickly on some things. So,
Totally. And also, I think just speaking of upcoming guests, we met a whole bunch of amazing people um, while we were down in LA Climate Week,
yeah.
as well as around in our travels that we're going to be following up with to get on as guests. And
Yeah.
was it Amelia Steely who was the one who did the work with taking sets apart and making sure that they went into the right areas, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you
I mean,
remember that
there
was,
are, yeah, there are a lot of good, a
yeah.
couple,
So we'll get her on here
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, good
And
examples of this sort of
mhm,
thing out there, which is, kind of the point of the podcast is to bring people who
yeah,
are doing great things and give them a platform. So
yeah, we'll have some
love
more guests on
to
that
would love to have that
with some
conversation.
data. right? I mean, I think that's the
Yeah.
fun part, right? Like real world numbers, like how much money is saved and real data and
Mm-hmm.
volumes of material and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
it'd be
Mm-hmm.
great.
A lot of cool work. Yeah, a lot of great people out there. So stay tuned, folks. Like we've got a good lineup coming.
Hmm.
So good stuff. All right.
All
Well,
right. Have a good
let's
week.
wrap out this and get on to our guest. Hello and welcome to the tie-in. We are here at South by Southwest and we're excited to be talking with Sally Ann Ranney, and she's from an organization called Global Choices, and she had, first of all, a fantastic session about the Arctic here at South by Southwest. So
Thank you.
we wanted to learn a little bit more about that and about your work. Can you
Okay.
tell us about Global Choices and
Yes.
then everything that you guys you're doing?
Okay, yeah. So Global Choices is an international organization, all women-led, and we are focused on the polar regions
Right.
primarily, but specifically now the Arctic because it is dissolving
Yes.
the fastest of any system in the world right now because it's 4 times warmer than any place else, and in some places 7 times warmer. So the sea ice is disappearing really quickly, and that's where we're focused because that's the epicenter of climate change now because it is impacting literally the whole world.
Yeah, yeah. And I learned yesterday in your session that you all are working on kind of a no-go zone, if you will, to protect folks entering the Arctic Circle or entering the center of the Arctic Circle. Can you tell us a little bit about that and
Yes.
your efforts there?
Yes. So, in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, outside of the 200-mile, what they call EEZs, that every country has that buffer
Yeah.
on their continental shelf. Well, beyond that is international waters,
Right.
and they're called high seas. And they were dedicated in 1982 by the UN Law of the Sea. There's many of them around the world. So our focus is right now on the Central Arctic Ocean. The reason being is that all the sea ice is retreating now, particularly in the summers when it's most vulnerable. It's retreating into the Central Arctic Ocean. And the Central Arctic Ocean is basically a global commons. It belongs to nobody and to everybody
Right.
because it is a high seas. So it was the perfect opportunity to take a look at what was happening. I mean, the evidence, this is science driven. What we're doing is science driven. It's also social and equity driven as well. So when I started, the first time I went to the Arctic was in, I don't know, it was like 2008, I think. And it was a pretty heavy duty trip. We had Madeleine Albright on it, and President Carter, and Ted Turner, and a whole, Al Gore was on that one, I think. But anyway, the purpose was it was a show and tell. It was a climate show and tell.
Right.
And I knew on that trip that the Arctic was going to be it. And I didn't know that I would be involved as much as I am, but here I am.
Yeah.
Way leads on to way. So because the sea ice is so critical, it's a planetary cooling system, and it's a climate stabilizer. So as the ice melts, it exposes dark ocean. So it's our reflector, it's our heat shield.
Yeah.
It reflects the heat and the radiation, sun's radiation back into space. Without that, all that heat goes into the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay, and that raises water temperature and it raises air temperature.
Yeah, and it affects the Gulf Stream and the jet stream.
Oh yeah,
Or-
Definitely. So the jet stream now If you're looking down on the planet from up here and you're looking at the North Pole, the jet stream used to look like this. Now it's like this.
Yeah.
So when you have a down oscillation, that's when Texas freezes and Florida gets snow.
Yeah.
I was there. It was an ice storm.
And New Orleans had snow as well
Yeah,
recently.
exactly.
Yeah.
And when you have an up oscillation, that's when all the heat from the equator comes up, boom, it hits that polar vortex, that cold air, it gets stuck. So it sits there. So you get heat domes. You get droughts. And droughts are usually followed by wildfires. And then, because warm air holds more moisture, eventually it is so full of moisture, boom, you have a dump, and that's where the floods come from.
Yeah.
So that is the physiology of how that is working now.
And so how are you communicating these complex topics
Yeah.
to the lay person, or is that the audience for this work? And also, just to bring it into, you had media personnel. Obviously, Al Gore has been a big
Yeah.
proponent for climate change, climate action. So if you could speak to some of the messaging and some of the actions that are coming out of this work.
Right. So the messaging is challenging and really interesting. If we have
I
those,
have these little cards
yeah, if
here.
we have
Yeah.
these cards, I don't know.
We can show them.
You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
show them.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So people think that the Arctic's up there, the Antarctic's down there. Whatever happens isn't going to bother me.
Yeah.
But the fires in LA and the drought before it was proposed. Well, the problem was we didn't cut the dry brush. That is a short-term, very short-sighted look at the whole thing. It was because of climate change that there was the drought, et cetera, et cetera. So they're not looking at that long term. Most are not looking at that long term. So that hit a lot of celebrities' houses, and it's a perfect opportunity to really gather them and say, okay, you have a voice, you
Yes.
have a following, you have influence. This is what really prompted that whole thing. Come on board.
Yeah.
So the Arctic right now, often I start my speeches with elephants are ice-dependent species because they are. We all are, it turns out. And this is scientifically verified. I'm not making this up, you know. Yeah. So and so many people love elephants. And we have people who have come on board because they're going, oh my God, I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never knew that. Holy cow. Elephants have so many other problems to deal with. The other one for women and mothers, and I've got a card showing,
Yeah.
I've got one showing the elephants as well,
Yeah.
is that if you think of where a baby's soft spot is, and you think of where the Arctic is at the top of the world, well, the soft spot on a baby's head is the equivalent to what the Arctic ice is to the world. You damage either one of them, you damage the soft spot, you've damaged the whole child. If we damage irrevocably the Arctic, it has damaged the whole world. So, and the visuals, you asked so you saw the presentation. I use a lot of visuals because people remember pictures, they don't remember what you say, most of the time. And we are playing climate roulette, basically, or global leaders are. And it's a very, very dangerous game. And why? This is the center, and an early, it's a late warning system now, but it's been an early warning system for decades. And global leaders and world governments have not paid attention. Finally, France, their polar ambassador, what was it, 2 years ago, November, finally held almost an emergency, if you will, meeting. 37 countries showed up, and they proposed a declaration, but nobody really went after emissions. You know? And so how do you communicate? Nobody's been able to constrain the fossil fuel industry.
No.
So how do you communicate that? How do
Yeah.
you and so it's like talking about entertainment, you know, don't look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
don't look north.
Yeah.
Don't look north, even though that's where so much of this is
I
being
know.
perpetrated from. You know, and so we have to be really clever in both visuals and statements. You know, literally our global climate security is on thin ice. Literally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the really interesting things about your session was the kind of different perspectives everybody on the panel had, talking about geopolitical issues and health issues, all related and kind of bound up in the Arctic, which I found so fascinating because, like you said, it's not something that we hear a lot about. It's not in the mainstream news.
No.
So, so for me, who's like in the sustainability space, like
Yeah.
I hadn't paid that much attention to it either.
Yeah.
So it was completely enlightening. So thank you for that. But it is a really interesting place because you've got all of these, you know, international bodies, if you will, coming together or
Or not.
potentially not.
Or
yeah,
not.
exactly. What are you doing from a perhaps lobbying perspective or legislative perspective to help keep the Arctic?
Yeah, a
Safe.
policy.
Yeah, policy perspective.
Yeah, internationally. So we have proposed on the Central Arctic Ocean, for the reasons I mentioned, a 10-year moratorium
Okay.
based on the precautionary principle, which actually comes out of science. And you would think, as important as this system is to world climate health, that world governments and leaders would drop on their knees and say, oh my God, what do we need to do? We'll do it. Of course, that isn't happening. On the other side of that, because, as was stated yesterday, that ice is melting, so there's more access, there's a proposed transpolar shipping route across the North Pole. There are nodules in the southeast part, so deep seabed mining, oil and gas exploitation, which is up in the north in the Siberian basin and near Chikchak Sea, and then you have seismic blasting, which is a precursor to oil and gas, and it cannot have unregulated geoengineering or unregulated mass tourism. So this 10-year moratorium says, hey, let's take a deep breath. Let's really look at this. We don't know a lot about the deep ocean, Arctic Ocean. We do know, and there have been new species discovered there, but we really don't know a lot about it. So let's just hang on, you know. This is a platform that really invites and can be used as a multilateral, I guess you could say, multilateral collaboration with common cause. It's for the planet. You know, if governments can drop their national interests and egos for, you know, the good of the whole.
Right. Polar, like governments that are encircling the polar.
Yeah.
So who
sort
are
of north,
those?
the-
Those are
Well, there's 8 of them. There's Norway, Sweden, Finland. Russia has the longest coastline. There's us, America, with Alaska, Canada, Greenland, and Iceland.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the main ones. But because the melting of the Greenland ice sheet, which is now losing 30 million tons of ice per hour,
Wow.
all of that water is fresh water, cold water is going into the Arctic Ocean. And of course, the currents carry it. So what's happened is it's changed the composition of the water column, and it's changed and slowed down the Gulf Stream, the AMOC, basically the ocean conveyor belt. Is all impacted by what's happening, in the north.
So this sort of brings me to the thought of more adaptation versus trying to, slowing down that melting. That's we're well past just trying to stop the melting. So we now have to come up with sort of more adaptive strategies for humanity to keep thriving, or for Europe to not turn into another ice age, or is that part of the discussion as well? Because I think, I'm a geologist by trade, and so when you start to look at these broader Earth systems, you can't just put the brakes on.
No,
it doesn't work like that.
No,
so
no,
is this part
because
of the
everything is connected to everything.
Yeah.
So the cryosphere, which is the umbrella name for all the ice and snow on the planet. Okay, it's one of our life support systems, along with the biosphere, flora and fauna, the hydrosphere, which is fresh and salt water, the geosphere, which is the soils, and the atmosphere. Those are the 5 systems. That's it. That's what we have.
Yeah.
And so with the cryosphere unraveling the fastest, and also what's happening with the Greenland ice sheet, if that goes, which looks like it will, 24 feet of sea level rise. And in my presentation yesterday, I had a picture. What happens, let's put it this way, the fate of the Greenland ice sheet is the future of Miami.
Yeah.
So,
sea level rise is significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at, what's going to happen to our East Coast, then you look at what's going to happen to Europe. It's not just the United States. All of that, is going to suffer from sea level rise.
Yeah, Caribbean as well. All these coastal and small island communities.
Exactly. So small islands, I was going to get into that. Small island states are very interested in what we're doing because it is a global commons.
Yeah.
The ecological services, or the ecosystem services, at the moment are benefiting us all. When they're not there, they will hurt us all, in one way or the other. So adaptation, yes, but when you have 300, what is it? I just lost the number on that, but such a large number of people live close to the coast.
Oh, yeah.
And when you think of climate refugees, they don't have to be someone in a country in Africa.
Yeah.
We already have climate refugees from LA.
We talked to someone who focused exactly on that, right? It's remarkable. And kind of just, the through line with all of this, connecting with entertainment. this is the stuff that, not only messaging, but could be the basis for a great story.
Yes.
I'm trying to bring it to, there's a big push right now for climate storytelling.
Yes.
People with interesting jobs going to the Arctic, people, bringing these stories forward through our stories and our TV shows and whatnot.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll be impactful to change hearts and minds of the general public who see these?
I think it really could be, because, and you all know this better than I do, but I've read that when there's animals involved, people really respond.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's
really
interesting.
respond.
The polar bear, the starving polar bear. Or,
the polar bears, but also the ice, even though it's in the ocean, because it impacts everything. There's 21,000 species in the Arctic. People don't know that, and the food web, which is being disturbed by this. And I had a slide yesterday.
Saw that. Yeah, it's remarkable.
Everything is connected to everything. And so so when you have a whole systems problem, you need a whole systems solution. And so we are looking at this, and we're encouraging leaders to look at this, and I've met with many of them, I can tell, you can sit me down with any heads of state, any environmental minister, and I can tell him or her how the Arctic is affecting their country.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's actually a really remarkable opportunity
Yeah.
for people to come together and use this for two things. One, to collaborate for the greater good. Oh, we're only talking 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
come on, we can get that together, right?
Yeah. We're only talking 10 years, and that will give time for, hopefully, for really innovative ideas and frameworks for protecting this high sea, but other high seas as well.
Yeah.
You know, from resource exploitation, which is, you know, deep seabed mining is
It's very destructive.
Very destructive, yeah.
It's very destructive, and
Yeah.
it's like the race to the bottom.
Yeah.
You know.
Literally.
Yeah.
So how do people, like, how do we get involved with this effort? Because this is,
Okay.
I'm very, like, I'm jazzed up about this.
Oh,
So, like,
good.
how do we get involved with
Good,
this?
good. Okay, so we have something called the Arctic Ice Force,
Okay.
which is all over the world, and we have 9 hubs in 9 different countries right now, and people can sign up. They get alerts. They get asked to do this or that, march, whatever is going to make a difference at that moment, and also to tell us stories.
Okay.
Exactly, to tell us stories. We also have the Arctic Angels.
Ooh.
The Arctic Angels is an international network of young women. The youngest is 13, the oldest is 31, and they are ambassadors and spokespersons for the Arctic and for the moratorium, because many of them have come to us and said, oh my God, I didn't realize that, you know, my parents can't plant anymore because the seasons are all different. We don't know when to plant. Now we have a drought, etc. I didn't realize until I started, you know, where did this come from?
Yeah.
That a lot of it comes from the Arctic. And so we have, they're in 40 countries now, and we have, they're very well chosen. They have to write an essay. It's not just sign up and you're an Arctic Angel. It's well curated. And we have, I think, 70, I'm going to say 76 to 78 now. And they are really active, and they speak at COP. They're in high-level discussions. One of them is a planetary guardian. One is now, she is a delegate for Ireland to the UN.
Wow.
For the UNCCC.
Yeah.
So, you know, we also provide trainings for
Do they
them.
go to the Arctic? Is that part
Well,
of it as
that's our, yeah.
All right.
We want to take them to the Arctic, I hope, in 26. Yeah. Yeah. Because, like,
You got to see.
yeah, and they want to go. Our Arctic Angel in Uganda, she's never been there. She,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
would change her life.
Yeah.
Change her life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are very active, and they're sought after speakers now, and so the word is, you know, and they come back with stories, you know, which is, and the storytelling, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of our partners is called Hearts in the Ice. It's 2 women who are the first white women to overwinter in the Arctic by themselves. They had all kinds of interactions with polar bears and all kinds of things. I mean, it's a great story.
Yeah.
It's a really great story.
There
And
you
one
go.
of,
It's a movie?
yeah. And one
Did
of
they film
them,
it?
pardon?
Did they film it?
They have a lot
Okay,
of film.
yeah.
They have a lot of film. And one of them has become a very good friend of mine, and she's running a trip, actually, that you all might like to participate on in September with women like me, but who are engaged in some way, but also a whole group of indigenous women.
Yeah.
So, you know, and the indigenous have amazing stories. Amazing. So we have one Arctic angel who's Inuit who lives in northern Greenland. And she was telling me when we were up in Iceland that her grandmother can't really tell the stories and the timing of the hunts the way she used to.
Yeah.
Because everything has shifted. A lot of the hunters have gone back to dog sleds because that spreads out the weight. Whereas the snowmobiles have been going through, people have drowned.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, and it's not just about subsistence, food that's close to home. It's also cultural. It's an erosion of culture, you know, of their spirituality, because it's all
All connected.
connected. They understood it long before we did,
Yeah.
and they understand systems long before we did. And
Well, for
science,
10,000 years.
yeah,
I mean,
and
or more.
science, and we didn't believe it until science verified it.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've had the pleasure of going up to the Arctic, the high Arctic, in 2001.
Ooh.
And I went to the northern tip of Baffin Island.
Oh, yeah.
And Pond Inlet.
Yeah.
And spent a month camping on the flow edge as well. It was in April, May.
Ooh.
So it was still, it was
Yeah.
24-hour daylight, but it was minus 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, yeah.
It was very, very impactful. And I think one of the biggest things that I didn't know, well, there's a couple things that I learned at the time. One is that they didn't teach us this in school and university, but it was the residential schools, and that the impact that had on communities. But what was interesting about that is that the Inuit had only come into the town and town centers in the 1950s, versus a lot of the sort of the southern indigenous populations had been sort of like, you know, forced into residential schools at a much earlier time. So there is still this culture of understanding of, there are folks that have been born on the ice and have lived, so they have those stories, they have that knowledge,
Exactly.
they have that culture still very present, versus other indigenous communities around North America and the Americas. It's been a lot longer,
There's
many
some
multiple
distance.
generations
Yeah.
there. So I
Yeah.
thought that was a really interesting thing. So there still are those stories that are still there and still very, very much very real.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, there's 6 permanent indigenous members of the Arctic Council, which is those countries that I mentioned. There's 6 different nations, First Nations, that are permanent participants, but they don't have a vote, which is interesting. And then there's what they call observer countries that have come in, which raises my eyebrows, because China claims to be a near Arctic state. You know, so they, of course, South Korea, etc. You know, there's, I think, 13 different countries.
Wow.
And it's because they want
Shipping routes.
the goodies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They want, you know,
exactly.
they don't want to be left out of what is there. You know, and you have to wonder, we have penetrated into almost, well, there's about 8% of land that is still wild. Humans have intersected into everything else. I think our challenge for the future is restraint.
Yeah.
Just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Right.
You know, and so, and those are the kinds of wisdoms, what you were talking about, I call original knowledge, and
Yeah.
I've written about this. We all have this original knowledge, this knowing how to behave with nature and how to behave with each other. But with the overburden of religion and education, and now all the
distraction.
the meetings and all
all
the
that.
distraction and money being, you know, a primary goal and all that, we've lost that. We've lost that.
Yeah.
And also, people don't have a close relationship with nature.
Yeah.
I think I told you I slept in a tree when I was little. And that changed my life. I didn't know it at the time, but that set my course.
Yeah.
And it's a much longer story, but if young people don't have that connection, then because it provides safety, it provides resourcefulness, it opens your heart in a way that nothing else can. It teaches you oneness of all things are connected. And once you get that, you can't go backwards.
Yeah. You notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we ask all of our guests this question. So we're developing like a playbook with guiding principles around. It was really sustainability and entertainment, but everyone we talk to has a different take on what would guiding principles be. What would your top 1 or 2 guiding principles be in terms of sustainability and as you see it in your daily life?
I would say don't deplete any resource beyond its capacity to regenerate to its original. So if you take a fishery, if you take a forest, if you take a wetland, ice is a little different because we can't plant ice.
I love that. I love that thing.
Yeah, we can replant forests and mangroves and etc., but not ice. So that would be one of them. Another one would be there are certain systems conditions that are required on this planet to sustain life, and some of those don't match with the way we're living now. So another principle is don't mine more subsurface that can't be reabsorbed back into the geosphere. Lithium doesn't meet that, so, and we're using lithium batteries, and the mines, I've been to the mine, they're awful. They're awful. So that's another systems condition. And then I would say a definition between sufficient and enough. What is the definition of that? When I speak all over the world and I ask audiences, what is most important to you? A roof over my head. I mean, it's not
grandiose or anything.
No, it's not grandiose,
Yeah.
A roof over my head, good food, education for my kids, and a decent job.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. And we're not living in that way.
Yeah.
And so and the other one I think would be to drop ego.
Drop the ego.
Yeah.
That's a guiding principle.
That's
has
so,
to be.
yeah.
Has to be. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
You're
for this
welcome.
conversation and for all the work that you're doing, bringing
you.
this important information forward.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
I'm delighted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Did
fun.
you want to just maybe, how can people get in touch with you? Or
Yes.
do you have a website? Maybe just let everybody know.
Yeah, so globalchoices.org. Very easy to find. And we're also on Instagram, and we're also on X. So, and on Instagram, we're under Arctic Angels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on Facebook, we're Global Choices.
Perfect.
So
Great.
you can find us almost anywhere.
Thank you so much. Well, we'll make sure we share those handles as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. This
Thank
is
you.
day, 4 or 5 at Southwest Southwest. So, yeah, keeping up with it. Okay. Thanks.
Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Our producer is Colin Miller.